My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach,
And I am the Uncle Junior, and I go by the Consistency Coach.
and we are the coaches for Coach's Corner. Listen, as always, we want to make sure that we welcome you and thank you guys for being present here with us because you can be any place else, but you chose to be here with us, and we do not take that lightly. So, that being said, as I always do, listen, if complacency is what you're looking to do, then this is not the place for you. But if you're looking for growth, if you're looking for empowerment, and you're looking to serve your community in the most esteemed way that you possibly can, you're in the right place. So that being said, man, we're just gonna kind of dive into it, man, because I'm
Man,
I'm
let's do it.
I'm ready, bro. Let's do
Yeah.
this.
Jump right in the pool.
Let's get it.
Hey man, so with that being said, man, actually even before, no, hold up, man. Let's dive in. But let's at least acknowledge everybody in the chat. Thank them for being here, all those different things. Again, this is a pre-recorded show. However, we are with you live right now in the chat. So thank you all for being here. And with that being said, man, everything good with you?
Absolutely, man. All is well.
Yeah, no, it's only beginning of the week, man, and we got a few more days to go, man. So with that being said, man, like you said, let's get into it. So, this was a person. This conversation is stemming from a conversation that we had. Was it last Friday? Yeah,
Last Tuesday.
or last Tuesday. Okay, last Tuesday on Coach's Corner. And I believe the person's name was Adrian Artist. So this conversation is coming from him. And what we wanted to do was make sure that, when we're having these conversations, we are here for you guys. You know what I mean? Like we are here to kind of share our information, our knowledge, our wisdom, whatever we have acquired to this point to that someone may be able to benefit from it. So with that being said, Adrian, thank you again for the topic, and we're going to get into it. And so the conversation for today, we're going to be talking about battling negative thoughts and limiting beliefs. And with that being said, man, let's just jump right to the first question of the night. So what are some common negative thoughts you experience or have experienced, and how do they or did they affect your daily life?
Man, you know what? This question is so vast. Uh, like,
Yeah, because you can talk about something now, or you could talk about something from the past. And like you said, it is vast,
yeah,
big.
but just in the notion of negative thoughts, common negative thoughts. We can look at it from the perspective of just simply being a man, right? Or just simply being a person. I say it that way. Looking at the ability to accomplish some of the goals that you set out for yourself. There are certain negative thoughts that you have within there. Like, I don't have enough time in the day. That's a negative thought. I don't necessarily have the skill set to accomplish what I want to accomplish. That's a negative thought. How am I going to do it? Like when you start looking at these things, like it really can be wide like a wide scope of thoughts, even at your job. When you look at, like, say for example, we work together and I look at the quality of work that you do, and I start comparing your work to my work, like that's a negative thought that stems from
Yeah.
a negative thought. So when you start looking at these things, there's a wide variety of negative thoughts that stem from like my identity, that stem from like my skill set, that can even stem from my past experiences, my upbringing, the negative outcome of any situation I may have experienced. So all of those things, kind of tie in. And then when you look at how do they affect you, well, first and foremost, a lot of those negative thoughts can make it difficult for me to even push the limits of my comfort zone. I'll start there. Um, just it's easy because this thing here, this thing that I exist in, this flesh, it's easy for it to go back to what it know. So when things become challenging, when it starts to challenge everything that I know, I want to revert back to my comfort zone because there I'm safe. And that's one of the biggest issues that we run into. We will pull out of whatever it is that we're working on whenever we feel challenged, whenever we feel a little anxiety, or whenever we get to the point to where we believe that someone else is looking at us and just kind of having negative thoughts about what they're possibly looking at. And there is no evidence that they're looking at me and having these thoughts. It's just what I may
Hmm.
find. So yeah, man, this question right here, like we can go on about this for a long time.
I like what you said when you mentioned what was that word? Like comparing. You mentioned comparing because I think that a lot of times we don't even know. I would say that I think sometimes the comparison comes from when we are starting something new, right? So I'll give an example. I was feeling or thinking that I guess the negative thought would be that others are better than me at something, right? So, when I got into the John Maxwell space and stuff like this, and I'm looking and I'm going through and I'm watching these videos, right? And I'm looking at the videos, and these people, they are very seasoned at coaching, at talking or speaking or everything that they're doing. But I'm brand new. But I'm just like, I can't do that. So it's causing me to feel inadequate. And it caused me at one point to not want to push the button and go further. But what I had to realize after some time of dealing with this in my own head, because that's really all I was doing, I had to realize that, hey, look, bro, you are just starting out. These guys have been speaking for 20 years. These guys have been coaching for 15, 20, 25 years. You know what I mean? They are supposed to be seasoned at what they do. Dude, you're just starting out. You just got your certification. Now you got to start putting some action behind those things. And you're never going to be able to do anything or get better or get further if you don't step out there and start pushing past some of these things. So I would definitely say for me, I made it personal, but I think that a lot of people experience that, and I think sometimes it's just a matter of us not taking in consideration exactly where we are at that moment or whether at that time and place.
Yeah, if I can, I kind of want to piggyback off of that because you're right.
Hmm.
I remember when I first got certified, the thing that was a challenge for me is the qualification comparison, right?
Mm,
Because in my mind, you need to fit a certain qualification to even be able to talk to certain people. Like if you
hmm,
don't necessarily have the experience working in certain spaces, you've never been a CEO of a company, you don't have a doctorate degree or whatever the case may be. Like I started questioning, I'm like, why would somebody listen to me? You know what I'm
hmm,
saying? And so, sure, I went on a run of trying to just gather qualifications, right? Because in my mind, I needed to fit a particular model, if you will. And don't get me wrong, I don't look at it as a bad thing. I think acquiring those qualifications was a good thing. But
hmm,
the other side to it is the negative thoughts and the negative feelings that went along with it. I could have still got those qualifications minus the negative thoughts that went along with them.
hmm.
So it's just that those negative thoughts, even though they can propel you to do something, it's almost like you're doing it in an unauthentic fashion because you're only doing it to fit your perception of what you think somebody else is thinking. And
Yeah.
so, what's the big question? Are you doing it because you want to be the best version of yourself so that you can serve your customers in the most authentic and honest manner, or are you doing it so that you can look good? And I think that's the space where people have to make that decision when it comes down to it. And I had to have a long talk with self.
Hmm.
So look, man, you got to find a way to stop thinking like that. Even if those thoughts come up, it's okay. Grab it, suppress it, and then submit it to a higher authority and get to the place like, so what is the right thing for me to do? Do I necessarily need this qualification? Do I want this qualification? How can I use this qualification to serve people in a better way? And then once I started asking those questions, then it kind of got me in the right state of mind.
Yeah, and I think it's important to let people know that a limiting belief can be temporary. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to last forever. It can and it does sometimes last for a long time. You know what I mean? Like I know I told a story, I think it was last week about the me referring to myself as a CD student because that's what I did all through high school. But it wasn't until within the last couple of years where I changed my mind. And that's because in my since high school, the amount of degrees and stuff that I've gotten, they always B plus averages. So it's like that's who I was, that's who I used to be, but that's no longer who I am now. And I think that sometimes we get stuck in believing that who we were at one point or at some point of our life determines who we are all the time. You know what I'm saying? So people change, people grow up, people evolve, people get new information, and sometimes they apply that new information, and then they evolve into just a better version of themselves.
Yeah. You know, it's funny as you listen when you list that, I'm reminded of something that Robert Kiyosaki said, and I may mess it up, but it kind of goes along the route of um, A students grow up to work for C students, and B students grow up to work for the government. So I thought that
Mm,
was kind of interesting when I heard you say that, right? Because it just
mhm,
reminded me of him saying that, and I think that's a very interesting thing because in this system we kind of judge ourselves based upon educational accolades. And don't get me wrong, I am all for education as long as education is placed in the right perspective. Education can get you in the door. Education can do certain things for you, but it's something more internal. Your drive, your internal desire to excel and be better, and all this other great stuff. That's the thing that really opens the doors. Education just kind of puts a kind of like an initial behind your name, and it's all fine and
mhm.
dandy. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, just because you have an initial by your name, unless I'm looking for a doctor, I don't really care.
Yeah. And I think I think I want to point out something that this is just my opinion. And I don't think that, getting those initials are bad. But I think that, you know, what's the purpose behind it? What's the
Right.
reason? What's the why? You know what I mean? And I don't have any problem with somebody just going out and getting it just because they want to do it. But, you don't necessarily need this degree to get this job. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think that's a big misconception, especially with students coming right out of high school. I did an intern at a high school a few years ago. And then I just raised, my last two sons graduated in 21 and 23. So they recently graduated. So I was dealing with a lot of high school things, and, just knowing some of their friends, being around the football team and stuff like this. A lot of them just didn't understand what to do after high school. And, so I think it's very important.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
do have.
also, I want to say something real quick. Oh, go ahead if you
No, no,
got
no.
something.
Go ahead. I think you're about to say the same thing I'm about to say. Go ahead.
I was going to say something about what was in the private.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
We just wanted to
No,
do it
I'll
real.
do it since I messed it up. All right, so first of all, I want to apologize to Adrian. So we got the name mixed up. It was Adrian Thomas, right? So not Adrian Artist. So Adrian, again, I apologize. I appreciate you if you're here today in the chat. And again, this conversation is coming from your thought or what you said in the chat last Tuesday. So
Absolutely. Personal request. And Agent Artist, we still love you. You know, keep coming and
yeah,
keep coming and spreading that knowledge like you have been for the past couple of weeks.
there you go.
Yeah,
And
man.
Adrian Thomas, both of y'all come back. Let's
Absolutely.
go, man. What's the next question, man?
No, no. What is the next question?
What is the next one? Next question. How do you think limiting beliefs have shaped your personal or professional growth? You want to go first or want me to go first?
Hey, man, I'm all over it, bro.
All right.
I think, and I'm gonna go back to where I started at previously. And if you guys were with us on Friday, it's gonna sound very similar. If you was with us on Sunday, it's gonna sound similar to that as well, right?
We're at last Friday and Sunday.
So Friday on the Hearts of Men podcast on Empowering Perspective YouTube channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays on TikTok 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
You can
Um,
find information in the description.
Appreciate that.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
so a lot of these limiting beliefs were passed down. So some limiting beliefs are passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation. I think it's a common understanding that I cannot teach something that I don't know, but what I do know is that's the thing that I end up teaching. So if I have a limitation in my thought processes, that's what I actually teach to my children. So sometimes we end up teaching our children limitations and things of that nature, and that goes on to shape their identity as as they kind of see themselves, which kind of equates from identity to self-concept, and self-concept kind of morphs into esteem, and esteem is how I show up in the world because that's how I now present myself in a social setting. So if it all extends in that line, it has to start from the beginning with my identity. And if my identity says because of a thing, Because I am a female, I can't do this. Because I'm a African American person, I can't do this. Or because I'm only 5 foot, whatever, I can't do this. So when you start looking at these different quote unquote what can be perceived as limitations, now you start automatically Xing out things that you really want to do in your life. Especially when you come from an environment where people say you got to work twice as hard and be twice as smart to be competitive with other people. And so those limitations tend to shape the belief system, and it prevents you from even taking the risk to see what is possible, to see what you can accomplish, so forth and so on. So when you start there, start from your upbringing, that kind of creates a problem. Now, moving from upbringing to like your experiences in life. You have failed relationships. You have, say, for example, you tried out for the basketball team, you got cut from the basketball team, right? Let's just say, we all did it when we was young. You want to, date a young a person, and you kind of ask them, will you be my boyfriend, girlfriend? And they're like, no, you know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
now it kind of affects me, and now moving forward, it's like I automatically start counseling out certain things when it comes down to just taking a risk or taking an opportunity. Um, and then moving forward, you see it also in the work setting for adults as well. You apply for a job because you want to kind of get the highest paying job that you qualify for, but then you're like, no, we appreciate your application, but we're going to move on. We moved on with another candidate. We won't be moving forward with you. So now those negative beliefs that you can have that stem from that particular experience can move forward. And now what ends up happening is that you won't take the risk to apply for any job that looks like that moving forward. I don't want to continue going on and on and on about this, but as you can see, I can
Mhm.
keep on going. I want to pause right there because I don't want to steal anything that you were already thinking about.
Mhm. Well, you kinda tiptoed at it a little bit, but I think I got a little add to it just because I got, an analogy kinda to back to what I my previous, um talking point. I would say, how do you think limiting beliefs have shaped your personal professional growth? Um, it prevented me from stepping outside of my comfort zone. Now you mentioned kind of comfort zone a couple times when you were speaking. So I was like, man, I hope you don't steal all my thunder. Because that's kind of what I was going with, because I go back to being new with coaching. And it was like, some of those similar thoughts. Am I good enough? I had to step outside of that, you know what I mean? But I think what that may have caused some missed opportunities, or it may have caused um a a pausation, I guess you say, in growth, right? Because if you're not coaching, not that you're not learning, but you need that hands-on, talking to clients in order to get better. You know what I'm saying? Like you can talk to the mirror and do other coaching techniques and stuff like that we learn. However, there's nothing like getting in front of a client and having a conversation and then being able to practice those skills and stuff like that. So and that's with everything, regardless of whatever profession that you in. But I'm just speaking from this talking point, and I think that people will say that, yeah, well, you are where you are supposed to be. That's true. I understand that. However, I also understand that if I would have pushed some buttons earlier, I could have been farther along in certain areas of my life. And I think that it's okay. I think it's both. You know what I mean? I think we are where we are, and I think that we could be further ahead if we have done some things. I think both can be true.
I definitely agree. I want to add to that saying because I like that saying. You are where you are, and that's where you're supposed to be. Uh,
Mhm.
my mentor told me a long time ago, which I kind of coined that phrase because I think it's true. We are where we are so that we can learn, that we can grow. And so, in essence, a lot of times, what we do, given the exact same example you just gave, even in the coaching field, some of my limiting beliefs will not allow me to speak with clients that, let's just say, work for a Fortune 500 company or a CEO of a company, or things of that nature. Like, you be like, yeah, I mean, what could I offer that
Yeah.
person? Well, if you understand
Do I
coaching,
qualify?
right,
Mhm.
if you understand the coaching practice, you can offer a lot. But if you don't necessarily understand, like you can have all of the training that you need. You
Mhm.
understand the coaching process, you understand like different techniques and things of that nature, and you will set that aside because you're still looking at them through the lens of your limitations. And so what that does is it prevents you from getting that experience, right, to developing your resume per se, or even more importantly, helping that client. So I think a lot of times, when you look at whether it's, a coaching practice, whether you look at it's a medical practice, whether you look at its educational setting, I think what we what when we look at these limiting beliefs, I think what ends up happening is that we create a ceiling that does not exist in our life, and therefore we will never exceed beyond that ceiling simply because we have already capped it off for ourselves.
I was writing something down as you were talking. I was still listening. Um, so I was wondering, I didn't want to forget it. Can that quote be a limiting belief, right? So the quote is this: you are where you are supposed to be. We hear that all the time. So I'm wondering, is that a limiting belief? And so right now, I'm on the fence because I've always heard it and it makes sense. However, as we were talking and as we are unpacking all of these limiting beliefs, it kind of seems like, in a sense, like if you hadn't done no work, right? Like I hadn't done certain things early on in my coaching career, right? So I may not have been taking certain clients or, yada, 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 right? So I wasn't getting that experience for whatever reasons, right? But can that be used as a crutch? You know what I'm saying? Like, I am where I am, but the reality of it, I was just being lazy, or I was being scared, or I was procrastinating, or I didn't want to learn more. There are a number of different reasons why someone didn't go forward. But I think, in a sense, sometimes it's easy to say and to give yourself a pass when you say you are where you are, where you are supposed to be. But I am definitely interested in hearing what you got to say.
Bravo, sir. Bravo. I think so. Let me say it like this because I am sure that as people are listening, they can see both sides of it. And I think for me to disregard one, I'll say it that way. For me to disregard one, it does not give way to the growth that may be happening in that person. Because you have to understand, and I'm not saying that this was you because I don't necessarily know, at one point in time, I may have been that person to say, I'm in a space where I don't belong. I don't belong here. I don't know how I got here. Like I didn't meet any of the qualifications that got me here. So that's like I'm literally writing myself off, even though I'm existing in the space. So I am existing in a space where I am flooded with imposter syndrome right now, right? So that's a mindset. But then the other mindset is that, you know what? I'm right where I'm supposed to be at. So now that's me embracing the fact that I'm here. I don't have any imposter syndrome. I am vibing with the people that I'm here. Like I'm really having a good time. However, I think there is also a time where a person continues to grow. And the other side of that is that I am where I am so that I can learn, that I can grow. So while I'm in this space, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, but I am here as a sponge and I'm soaking up information. I'm soaking up knowledge. I'm creating good, positive networks and things of that nature. And I think for me, I would like to say that that's the progressive way of understanding overcoming limiting beliefs, right? Because the first one is extreme limitations. I don't know how I got here. I shouldn't even be here. I don't even meet the qualifications to be here. Now I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And next, I'm here so that I can learn, that I can grow. So these people are here and their job is to teach me and I'm looking. I'm hunting the person that I'm supposed to be learning from because that's what I am. I'm a lifelong learner. And I think when we look at that progressive way of thinking, it not only acknowledges where a person is, but it also helps that other person to realize. And a lot of times that happens through another person, helps that person to realize that, hey, there's much more that's in store for you.
Mm, man, you own it. Man, I just slid over and just looked at the next question, and I'm just like, Jeez, like I got a good one for this one.
Uh-oh.
So, without further ado, folks, here's the next question. Can you share a time where you successfully overcame a limiting belief? So, I think this may be common for a lot of people because I think this is one of the biggest fears that people have in general, and that is public speaking or being able to talk in front of people. I would tell you this, man, let me tell y'all something. So when I was in elementary school, I used to have to go to speech class because I had a lisp. And if you listen really close sometimes, especially when I get really excited, sometimes the lisp will come out. I also stutter, right? So, which I was an air traffic controller in the army. I don't know how that happened. I had to talk on the mic all the time. But nevertheless, when it came to starting a podcast and then having my face out there for people to see and for people to hear my voice, because I would tell you, like most people, excuse me, I don't like the sound of my voice. Um, I'm not going to say what it sounds like to me because I think that after that, everybody, including you and in the chat, and everybody listening, are going to look for that and they're going to hear that every time they hear me now. So I won't say what it is, but that was huge for me. Like it took a lot for me to jump out there and to start that podcast on the Uncle Junior Network, a couple of years ago, and to then for do it for 2 years, and then to be over here doing Coach's Corner, to be over on the Power Perspective, the Men's of Heart podcast on Friday nights. It was like it was a lot, and I've had to learn um a bunch of different things along the way, and even to the coaching part, that was a big limiting belief too. It's be like, well, what are you going to do when you get excited and you start stuttering, or your words won't come to you, or your lisp comes out, and people kind of find you out, you know what I mean, just based off how you talk, because that's always something that, well, when I was growing up and back in the day, that I was struggle with, my talking and stuff. My dad would tell me to slow down, think about your words before you say them. So, for me, y'all just heard me stutter for me. So, look, I'm okay with it. I understand where I am. You know what I mean? I've learned to accept my goods and my pros and my cons. But that's not necessarily con. It's just this is the way I was made, and it's okay. But it hadn't stopped me. I'm still over here talking and chit chatting. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, like I said, it was a big challenge, you know what I mean, to really step out there, to do the podcast, to do it this long. And then I still sometimes get nervous before the show. Like sometimes I still get hot. I still start sweating a little bit because I know that I'm about to go on there and I'm about to start talking. And I know that some people will look at how you talk and disqualify you based off of just how you talk. So that was something that I used to struggle with. But again, like I said, that was me. That is a limiting belief that I have been able to overcome over the last couple of years.
So when I first seen this question, that's exactly what came to my mind, what you just said. And then when I heard you say podcast, I was like, oh no, but okay, that's fine.
Bruh.
Because I still believe it's important to kind of share that version of it because it was a little different for me. Like I've
Mhm.
always been camera shy. Like you could go back and trace my entire life, and you have very little pictures that I actually took. Most of them unwillingly, but again, very little pictures that I actually took. And then I got to the point to where, like you said, doing the whole John Maxwell certification thing. So now you're standing up in front of people talking to people. Like, really? Okay, cool. Um, got it. We're all in the same space. We're all like-minded individuals. So I know you're not judging me because you guys
Mhm.
are trying to help me. And then next thing you know, I met this guy, and this guy, I was doing podcasts. I was doing voice podcasts, no visuals. And I met this other guy, and this guy said, "Hey man, I do a show, and you're welcome to join my show and all this other stuff." And if you hadn't figured out, I'm talking about that guy right there, right? So he invited me on his show, and I was like, "Okay, cool," because this is the experience. So now I'm stepping out. I don't like taking pictures. I never like taking pictures. So now I'm on his show, and like he did a really good job of making me feel comfortable as a part of the show. That's where I'm gonna start at. So I think you giving that story and overcoming your limiting beliefs kind of catapulted me to feel comfortable in space to do mine as well. And so I kind
Mm.
of started my show shortly after I made a few appearances on his, and of course I extended the olive branch to him to join my show. Now, to your point, I am not gonna lie, man. The first time I'm over here, and mind you, before when I was doing it, it was all recorded because
Yeah.
that's the time. So everything was recorded. I could edit all that stuff out. Now we're talking about doing it live. Now here's the challenge. If you guys have not figured it out yet, I'm from the great state of Georgia. I get excited and I talk really fast because my brain will run 100 miles a minute and my mouth is trying to catch up with it. And sometimes in the midst of doing that, I can speak words in cursive. Like I know what I just said, but you can't figure out what I just said because I said it so fast. You're like, wait, I think that's what he said. So it's like I have to consciously think to slow down so I can clearly articulate what it is that I'm saying so you can understand it. So the biggest piece that I had to get from all of this, and again, I'm going back to one of my mentors. He used to say a thing. He said, it doesn't matter what you do. Your job is not to look good. Your job is to ensure that you serve the people at the best of your abilities.
Mm.
And so I started thinking about those things. And so in doing so, it forces me to slow down. It forces me to think about what I really want to say before I say it, because it has to be a point. Don't just open your mouth just to talk, open your mouth to leave an impact. So now that's kind of like how I try to process and I think. And so I try to listen to every perspective that you hear, especially on Friday nights, because it's five of us. I try to listen to every perspective that is actually shared, and then I try to give a conversation or create or say something that is meaningful, that is impactful, and so forth and so on. But here's the reality of the truth. Why was I getting nervous in the beginning? Why was I worried about how I looked, how I sounded, breaking out into the sweats like you just mentioned? Because I was concerned about me. I was
Mhm.
more so focused on me than I was focused on the people. So that was my gateway of overcoming that limits and belief, is by coming to the realization that the people who are hearing this is far more important than me. I am just a vessel that is being used in this time and space to deliver the message that is being delivered.
And there you have it, folks. That was it right there. That was a good um I think that was a very good conversation piece right there. You know what I mean? Like I think that right there is definitely something worth going back and rewatching. Um,
But I
I'm
tell you
definitely
what,
gonna rewatch it.
it would have done me a lot of good if I heard that years ago. I tell you,
And who you telling?
yeah,
And that's the other part. But you know what? You are where you are. You are where you are supposed to be. But
absolutely,
still, man, if I would have heard that, like you said years ago, like, but that is true, man. That is, man. That was a great segue, man.
yeah. And I think that's the key, right? And that's where limiting beliefs gets its power, because I am more concerned about me than I'm concerned about the people that I'm supposed to be serving. And if you think about it, it's always that way. I'm not good enough. I don't have the qualifications. I don't have the skills. Me, and me. Hold on, take
Mhm.
me and put on the shelf and worry about them. Who cares if you got a little mustard on your jacket? Take that jacket
Yeah.
off and just go with the shirt, man, and be okay with that.
Now I'm thinking, man, are there how many other quotes that we say on a regular basis that are ingrained in us that are limiting beliefs? And I know we kind of talked about some of them this past Friday,
Yeah,
but especially like you mentioned earlier, stuff that we get from our parents and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, man, but definitely like this is like a whole series
it is.
on
Somebody
limiting beliefs,
somebody said that Sunday, like we need to create a series. And I think, yeah, we need to create a series on limiting beliefs.
man.
I'm just gonna put it out there.
Yeah, there you go. We like it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
How do you differentiate between constructive self-criticism and harmful negative thinking? I really like this question. Um, I think the answer for me is found in the description of whatever it is. Okay. Constructive. If I am looking at constructive self criticism, it is me being critical of myself from the standpoint of bettering myself, not judging myself, right? Not being self critical just for the sake of being self critical. It is me looking at what I'm doing and saying, you know what, you could have done that better. You could have shown up. Like, you did you really give your all, or did you just complete the task? And I think a lot of times what we do is we find ourselves in the space of completing the task, right? So when I have that conversation with myself, that puts me in the space of constructive self criticism. So I am building, I'm stacking the blocks. I am using a building block concept to continue to be better. With constructive self criticism, I do not hesitate to go back and do it again, because now I'm doing it through the lens of what I learned through the self conversation that I had with myself. So it has to do with intent. If it's a harmful, negative thought, then that harmful, negative thought is all about tearing myself down based upon something I've heard years ago, based upon my understanding of my identity from people who look like me, or whatever that looks like. There is no gateway, there is no bridge to transformation, there is no progressive realization of a worthy idea within this negative thought. So it has to do with, for me, it has to do with intent, whether it's malicious intent or constructive intent. And then from that, how can I take this thought and build upon where I am right now?
Man, that was a great that was a great response. I'm gonna see if I can just add to based off my little notes that I wrote down over here. So when I was looking at how you diff that word between constructive self criticism, kind of looked at as it's kind of um like behaviors. You can, man, what was my word? Like behaviors that you can replace, or behaviors, right? So I'm kind of looking at it as behaviors. I'm kind of looking at the harmful negative thinking is like a feeling of like feeling like self-worth, right? But feeling self-worth without like a solution. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm just feeling self-worth, but like you're not even thinking about a solution to the negative thinking that you have. So that's kind of um like I said, I can't really add too much to what you already saying. So I just took my little scrappy notes, and so I may add just a little bit to it, just add a couple more shakes of salt to it.
Hey, sir, that was a negative thought. You don't have scrappy notes, right?
Bro, look.
Okay, I got you.
I could, cause sometimes I write stuff down and then I write so fast because I'm trying to listen to that sometimes my words will jump. I don't write clear enough because I'm writing and I'm looking at you at the same time. So
Oh, I can relate. I do that. In fact, my notebook is right here.
yeah,
So
I forgot what I do. I think the Shell got she got the whiteboard. She in the gym working out, so she got the whiteboard in there. Write down the workouts and stuff. Ooh, what strategies have you tried to challenge and reframe negative thoughts? Ooh, for me, it's not necessarily meditation, but it's more visualization, right? So I learned, I heard a long time. I didn't put it in application until years later. But what I eventually did was I learned that I don't know where I got it from, but someone talked about it was in some sport, and they said you had to visualize yourself. It might have been track. Visualize yourself every single step of the race. So imagine yourself, you're doing let's say 110 hurdles, right? So you got 10 hurdles and you have to visualize yourself. You have to count every single step. You have to figure out how are you going to glide over the hurdle, which is your lead foot, which is your trail foot. You know what I mean? How many steps are we going to take in between hurdles? When are we going to lean to go through the tape at the finish line? So there's a whole process that goes into running 110 hurdle or anything. So I kind of learned that to start visualizing certain things, right? So with this whole thing, I spent some time not only meditating, but visualizing, having clients, having makeshift conversations in my head. Like I said, it's not always the same, but I would say that those things, they did make me feel a little bit more confident when I went into the conversation, what I mean, with clients. So, but I will say that just that journey, you know what I'm saying? And visualizing, things from start to end. And sometimes just visualizing things from start to however far you get. Because sometimes we be visualizing things, sometimes we get stuck, or sometimes just you may get distracted, or sometimes just it won't come to you. And that's okay. You know what I'm saying? But that's why I think it's important to, do visualization. You know what I mean? So I'm one of those guys that I like visualization. I get down with meditation. I get down with self talk, like all of these different things, because all of those things are things that I can control. You know what I mean? Because always two conversations going on up in there.
Yeah. Just get down, man. That's it. Just get down. That's what I'm talking about. Um, I like this question because it has one of my favorite words in it: reframing. And
Mm,
I don't know what show we talked about this thing right here, where I pulled this off the shelf and I just showed that the inside of it is just a flimsy piece of tin, but
mm-hmm,
when they put it inside this wooden container, that and they put the hinges on it and it opened and closed, it really dressed it up and made it look really good. And then it increased the value of it just by simply putting it in a different frame. I think this has the exact same effect when it comes down to negative thoughts. So for me, it's important to be able to identify a negative thought when I have it. That's for starters. Being able to identify a negative thought when I have it, and then I isolate that thought. Once I isolate that thought, I try to put a wooden frame on it. Once I put a wooden frame on it, it kind of helps me to hear the thought because I'm an advocate of the fact that you're having this thought for a reason. You just don't have thoughts because you're having thoughts. No, that thought is meaningful. You just didn't put it in the right frame. So reframe the thought and then wash it again. So wash, rinse, and repeat, right? So put it through the cycle again. So now when you put that reframed thought through the cycle, it's like, So perfect example of that is that you got to be twice as smart or you got to work twice as hard to get ahead, right? So it's like, do you have to be twice as smart or do you have to be twice as or work twice as hard? So now it makes you consider that, and then in the midst of consider it, either you're going to come up with the answer yes or no. You know what I'm saying? Because it forces you to consider the thing. And it's not so much as I have to be twice as smart. I just need to make sure that when I show up that I am smart when it comes down to the thing that we're talking about. So instead of doing the comparison, which is the twice as, right? Instead of doing the comparison, the only person I'm comparing myself to is me. So wherever I show up, I need to be smarter than I need to be smarter when I get there than I was when I left. So now it makes me do study. It makes me do some research. It makes me meditate on the things that I'm researching. So I think that's a great way of doing it. And the second technique that I tend to use, I invite somebody else to the party. So I may call, the consistency coach over here and say, "Hey man, I want to run a thought by you real quick. I want to
mm-hmm.
get your feedback." Right. So I'm sitting here thinking, I gotta be twice as smart to be on a podcast with you. He's like, "No, you don't." You see what I'm saying? Because now what I'm doing is I'm inviting your thoughts. And I'm joking when I use that example. It's not a great example, but I just wanted to kind of use that. But it invites somebody else's thoughts to the conversation. And generally, when you invite somebody else's thoughts to the conversation, again, generally, I'm gonna say it again. Generally, make sure the person that you invite to the conversation has the ability to not think about themselves all the time. If they think about themselves all the time, then you probably won't get a quality response. But if you find somebody who has the ability to listen to the conversation that you're trying to have with them, and they're listening so that they can understand what you're saying, not so that they can sharpshoot it, not so that they can question anything of that nature. They're listening to understand what you're saying, then they ask a question, and the question that they ask you 9 times out of 10 is a question that's going to make you sit back and be like, hmm, I didn't think of that. And when you get those types of response, that's the person that you can engage in those types of conversations with because that person is helping to challenge whatever belief system you have. If you have a negative belief system, they're challenging that negative belief system. If I have a comfort zone belief system, they're challenging your comfort zone. If I have a belief system and say, hey, I want to get outside of my comfort zone, but I'm kind of, a little nervous, they're challenging that as well. So you want to keep people in your corner that has the ability, and I stress that piece, that has the ability to challenge you in your thoughts so that you can grow, not so that they can look good.
Man, you said something, and I instantly thought about the chat. I thought about myself back in the day, and I got a question for you. So, my question for you is this: how do you identify a negative thought? Right? So, now before you answer, I think everybody in the chat who is watching probably need to get your notepad because it's probably going to be something good. It's probably a good nugget that you can pack up and take with you. So again, Mr. Coach Dwayne Dwyer, the mindset coach, I would like to know for myself and for a lot of other people, how do you identify a negative thought?
Another great question, by the way. Um, and thank you for asking that too, because I think as I listen to that question, we may have missed the mark in the beginning, right? And here's why I say that. I need to be able to understand what negative thoughts are for me based upon my stage of life. Negative thoughts at one point in time may have been something that downgraded me, my identity. Then as I progress, it downgraded my skill set. Then as I progress, it downgraded the world as so. Let me back up. So limiting beliefs exist in three different categories, right? How I see myself, how I see other people's, and how I see the world. Okay. And so first is negative belief system about how I see myself. The second one is how how I see other people. And the third is how I see the world. So when it comes down to it, whatever thought at one stage, all of my negative thoughts may have been about me. Then when I move to another stage, all of my negative thoughts may have been about how I see other people because I'm really thinking highly of myself at that state. And then I move to another stage, my negative thoughts may be about how I see the world. So when it comes down to it, it requires me to not only understand what negative beliefs that I have in those three different arenas, and it's not like a progressive stage. All three can exist at the exact same time, and it could be at different echelons, right? But it's important for me to also define success for me because here's why I say that. If I can define success for me, then I can define what a negative thought looks like for me. So now, the way that I identify negative thoughts is that any thought that I have that doesn't move the needle positively in the direction in which I want to go. So now that's it. So a thought of just sitting around watching TV in the middle of the day doing absolutely nothing, that's a negative thought for me because I got an ungodly amount of things that I can do within a period of time. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times when I say, you know what, not today, right? But that should not be more than, I should not do that 3 4 days a week. So any thought that I have that doesn't move the needle positively in the direction in which I want to go for my life, that to me is now defined as a negative thought. Once I get that, then that's where I start to isolate that thought and begin my process.
I like that. Can it be, because I was thinking about feelings, right? Like, can a negative self thought like be, can it like trigger like anxiety or like, you feeling like lonely or sad or something like that? It seems like sometimes, there's a certain level of awareness that you have. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, boom, this is a negative thought. And now I can tell because now I'm feeling a certain type of way. My temperature's rising. I'm starting to sweat. So, when I'm feeling like, oh man, I'm inadequate to be on this podcast, right? And I am over here sweating and nervous, you know what I mean? That's the anxiety that's coming from the negative thought. that I'm having about being on the podcast.
Yeah.
I had to
So,
kind of talk that out, man.
um, so yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you brought this question up, right? So
Uh-huh.
to your question, absolutely. So, and I talk about this all the time. My emotions, and people love it when I talk about emotions. I'm being facetious. My emotions are for me. I'm gonna say that again. My emotions are for me. They are indicators that something that I am getting from the environment does not resonate with me right now. That's the anxiety that you was talking about. Okay. So once I start to feel that, it is important that just like this question asked, it's important that I become self-aware. What is the information that I'm receiving right now in this environment that's making me feel anxious? Like you just kind of gave an example, right? If that was the case, I would ask the questions like, so why do you think you're feeling anxious? That's going to make you think. You're probably going to go back and replay it in your mind and blah, 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 blah. And then you're going to say whatever it is that you say. And so, whatever it is that you say, then we'll ask other questions to kind of take you along the journey of the answer that you gave previously so that we'll get to the point to where we say, okay, now I see where I went wrong because I may have compared myself to Garfield. I may have looked at the question and I may have beaten myself up because I really wanted to say something, but it just didn't come out right. Right. And if it didn't come out right, then why didn't it come out right? And, so forth and so on. So now going back to what I said, slow down, think about what I want to say, then say it in a very articulate fashion. So when we look at the role of self awareness when it comes down to combating limits and beliefs, it is the role, right? It is the primary role because at the end of the day, I am responsible for my own behaviors, right? So when it comes down to what I believe, if whatever I believe, I then be live. So if I believe a thing, it's only a matter of time before you see the thing come through me. That's why the Bible tells us, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So as I am believing, eventually I be live it. So it's important for me to search myself to understand why I can't believe up here, like why I can't believe at the level that Garfield believes. You know what I'm saying? Not that I am using you now as a tool, but I'm using you now as a motivational factor. And it's not so much as a bad comparison because now you are a advocate. And then here's the other side to it. I can come to you and say, hey, can I ask you a question? Sure. And so I ask you a question, you give me the answer. I ask you another question, you get so now I'm learning from you by virtue of connections. And so when we look at that, myself, me being self-aware of the limits and beliefs that I had, now it helps me to understand what I need to do so that I can change how I believe so I can now believe. Because if I don't do it that way, the only thing that's left is to blame everything in the environment. Oh, this is some bad lighting. The lighting isn't right. And that, well, with Garfield, you didn't hit your trigger. So no, no. Feelings, me. And that's my answer.
I got it, man. I got that. It was great. For me, I'm going to say, what role do I believe self awareness plays in combating limiting beliefs? I think that when you're self aware, sometimes, and you may have kind of, I may just be using it in very simplistic, more simplistic terms. Is it helps you at being able to identify the root of the limiting beliefs. So when you can identify the root of the limiting belief, now you can do something about it. You can challenge it, or you can do nothing. But if you are self-aware, like, self-awareness is so key. Like, we probably need to do a whole series on self-awareness too. Oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about self-awareness because that's like a start point for a lot. That is the starting point to evolve, to evolution, to being a better version of yourself, is being able to recognize, being able to have self-awareness. So when I think the role that one role that I believe self-awareness plays in combating limited beliefs is that you are able to find the root of the issue, and then you can challenge it and you can do something about it. So I know that was sweet and simple, but I kind of wanted to get to some of these true and false questions before we wrap up the show. Unless you wanted to add something else to this question.
Nope, let's get it.
All right, let's get it. What's the first one?
False. No, I'm joking.
True, false. Limiting beliefs are always based on factual evidence.
Oh, see, this is a tricky one
Because say
because
always.
right. So I have a thing to where if it is a statement, if it is a generalized statement, it is always false.
Mm-hmm.
However, I also believe that when it comes down to limiting beliefs, it stemmed from a particular place. So is it a fact that these things were given to me? The answer to that is yes. I was taught, and I'm using this one because we hear it a lot. We heard it a lot. I was taught that I had to be twice as smart or work twice as hard. So
Mm-hmm.
that part is a fact. Now, is there any evidence to support what was taught to me? No, there is no evidence to actually support that in its entirety. So I want to say, and this might be the first time I ever do it, true and false.
Mm. Well, I'm gonna say everything you said, but my answer is false. However, it's a fact. So false fact.
I like what you did there. I like that.
If that's okay.
That's perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
All right. It's okay. This is our show. It's okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Everyone
Everyone,
experiences. Go ahead. Everyone experiences negative thoughts at some point in their life.
true, fact, always.
But see, the word everyone.
Yep, yep.
I would
Only thing I
say.
know.
I would say true.
Hmm.
The everyone. Like I can't think of a reason a person wouldn't have a negative thought that is in their right mind, right? So, what I mean by that is there may be some people with a mental disability, right? So they have no even an awareness of a negative thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm
yes, sir.
thinking there may be
True.
some people like that. So other than that, I kind of can't really think of any other what the person like to make this statement false. Who is that person? Like I don't know. Even like Mother Teresa.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, come on now.
Even in the example you gave, like I still believe that they do experience negative thoughts. I mean, even if it's just frustrating, experiencing some degree of
Mhm.
frustration from not being able to do the things that they want to do, for not being able to go where they want to go. I think the key
Mhm.
here, and we talked about this previously as well, I think everyone at certain stages in their life, constantly throughout their life, will experience negative thoughts. Every
Mhm.
time you graduate to a new level, there are negative thoughts that are waiting on you at that level to challenge the fact that you are there.
All right. How many more you want to do? We'll get this do
Let's
almost.
roll with it, man. We got yeah.
Yeah, we had 2 minutes
Limiting beliefs can be changed through consistent practice and mindset shifts. That is a true statement.
all day long and twice on Sunday.
Yes, sir.
We don't need to spend no more time on this one. Keep just keep watching every Tuesday and Friday and them TikToks.
There you go. Positive affirmations are an ineffective way to counter negative thoughts.
False. All day
False.
long. False.
Mm, this is another one. Um,
I
the initial thought is false,
mm-hmm.
but it has to be an authentic, positive affirmation. If I am just quoting some things I just seen on the internet and I don't believe them, then it's not working for me, and those
Absolutely.
negative thoughts are still going to persist.
I agree with that. Yeah. So like when you build your creed, you
That's it.
got your creed. It ain't an affirmation, that's a creed. You know. So I think yeah, I can roll with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, as long as it's a real positive affirmation, like you said,
absolutely.
not something you saw on the internet.
Something you believe. Something you believe. You got to
Yeah.
believe it.
That's the last one. Are we done?
I think we're done, man. I'm looking at the clock, and it's about that time.
Okay. Well, boom. Let's roll. I guess it's time to roll into our actionable advice. So I'll jump out here and I'll roll first this afternoon. So my actionable advice for you over the next 7 days comes in the form of visualization. So over the next 7 days, when you get up in the morning, get up a few minutes earlier, right? At least 10 to 15 minutes earlier, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to get up and go wash your face and brush your teeth and stuff. And then you're going to go somewhere quiet in your house where no one is there. And then you're going to lay on the ground on your back, eyes closed, and you're going to visualize your day, right? What are you going to do when you get up? You know, your shower, your clothes, driving to work, spending time with your kids, whatever it is that you are going to do for that day, for the next 7 days, spend at least 10 minutes in the morning visualizing what your day is going to be. And I guarantee you, after 7 days, you're going to see a difference in something in your life. Promise you.
Man, that was so good. Um, for me, this is what I'm gonna share, and this is what I want you to do. I am going to talk to you about the art of journaling. Okay, so we're going to take the same time frame for 7 days. I just want you to focus on identifying the negative thoughts that you have throughout your day for 7 straight days. Whenever you have a negative thought, write it down. Put it in your notes on your phone, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. Find a way to capture that negative thought. Okay, make sure that you capture what the thought is and why the thought existed. Don't do anything about it yet. Just do that for 7 straight days. Then at the end of the week, I want you to look at all of the negative thoughts that you had and identify the ones that showed up the most. Then from there, now it's time to start doing some self reflection. Look at these thoughts. Why did they existed? What emotion did it generate out of you when it showed up? What behavior followed the emotion after you had the negative thought? And then you now are responsible for creating the change in that behavior that stems from that negative thought by first isolating that negative thought, reframing that negative thought into a more positive thought that moves the needle positively in your direction, and then identifying the behavior that comes along with that positive thought. And that's my actionable step.
What you talking about, Willis? You mean to tell me that I am responsible for my thoughts?
Yeah, man.
You mean the devil don't put them there? You mean the devil didn't make me do it?
Here we, here we go.
Hey, I heard some people say it. Heard some people say it. Heard it a long time. Heard a lot of
The
heard it for
devil,
a long time.
the devil been after me all day. No, it ain't. You've been after you all day.
Exactly. The devil.
Sorry, man. I'm sorry.
Hey, but look, hey, with that being said, folks, look, if y'all want to find out more information about us, look at the crawl at the bottom of your screen. You can find us here each week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Coach's Corner and on both platforms, Empower Perspective Podcast or the Uncle Junior Network. Also on Friday nights, the Hearts of Men Podcast, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And how often you go live on TikTok?
We do TikTok live every Sunday morning at 11:30.
Every Sunday morning, 11:30, folks. So there you have it. And until next time, we will see you. We are out.